welcome to the Low Tide Boys, a Swimrun podcast. I'm Chip.
And I'm Chris, and this is a special bonus episode. We're calling this the Odyssey Swimrun Austin course preview Addendum number 1. I don't think there's going to be more.
I don't think there's time for a number 2.
Yeah. So a few weeks ago, you might know, we dropped our deep dive course preview for the Austin race that's coming up on November 8th. Just at this point, a week and a half by the time you listen to this away. And that episode has been listened to almost 500 times. And we, it appears people are getting a lot of value from it. So we thought, why not do an addendum? Because they had a course recon training day on last Sunday. And one of our Strava Club members, Adrian Cameron, was there and just gave us a ton of intel in the Strava Club. So we were like, hey, Adrian, you want to come on the show? So Adrian, welcome to the show.
Thanks.
So before we get into what we're essentially going to do is just jump right into like a leg-by-leg breakdown of where the training session covered or what legs it covered. But before we do that, Adrian, tell us a little bit about yourself. What has you stoked on swimrun?
So I've been a swimmer for a really long time. Also ran cross country in high school. I did a couple triathlons back then too, but really got into triathlon 8 or 9 years ago. And then, the last couple of years been hearing stuff about swimrun, seeing YouTube videos from Attilo and now Ödyssey and stuff. And it's just like, it's right up my alley for the kind of sporting events that I want to do. I'm not a big biker, but I love to swim and I love to run. And when I found out there was one coming, 20 minutes away from my house, I was like, I'm doing this.
You lucked out.
Yeah.
I mean, now you could have made that course is now going to be your new training ground. You're going to be a beast out there.
We'll probably be out there, every couple of months doing some training now, I think, in the future.
Awesome.
I love it. So this is going to be your first swim run then?
This will be my first competition. Yeah.
I love it.
Oh, great. What are you doing?
I'm doing the long course solo.
Cool. Ooh, nice.
Very cool.
Okay. Enjoy. You're going to have a blast. Sounds like just the YouTube videos alone is enough to catch the sickness. So you're probably good.
Yeah, I kind of watch them over and over again.
Yeah, I mean, there's definitely something special about it. But I think we should just
let's do it.
Addendum number 1 coming up. Without any further ado, let's talk about essentially the legs of the course that Adrian that you covered with the Odyssey crew, and if you look on the show notes, you'll see for the original show, we had all this addendum. We had all these like annotated leg breakdowns. For the addendum, we've copied that, and then I've gone in and put in italics new information that we got that I basically lifted this from you, Adrian. So why don't we start with leg 1 that you did, and what were your impressions of the course?
Okay, so I'll try to describe it. I'm looking at the published course map right now. I'll try to describe it in terms of those legs. So we started at Tournament Point, which is a little landmass that is it's between Swim 5 and Run 3. And that area of the course right now, since there's really low water in the river, it's pretty exposed. It's a really sandy kind of area. And we started from there and ran backwards along the road. So that was not part of the actual course. It's along kind of what's labeled as Grisham Trail. And we went back straight towards the first cliff jump. So looking at the map, that's the cliff jump on the bottom of the map. And so we all just kind of started jumping in. And so
that's a great way to start a training day.
How was the cliff jump there?
It's you can go pretty high. You have an option to the way the course, the way that the cliff is built. It's kind of like a series of very narrow ledges. So you can jump from the top, and you're probably over 20 feet at that point. You can also just kind of keep scaling down and get like a 2-foot jump if you really want to. I jumped it was higher than jumping off a high dive. So I think a little higher than 10 feet, at least 15, something like that. It was jarring. Not gonna lie. I mean, it's kind of a shock. Like you hit the water pretty hard, especially with all that flotation on you. So
So what did you do about the flotation? Was it like a yard sale when you jumped in, or did you have like the pull buoy?
No, I was ready. I had I had my buoy between my legs, but I was pretty clenched.
Yeah.
So I managed to keep that. I felt a really strong tug. We were all wearing the
swim buoys.
Oh yeah,
the safety buoys. So that thing really kind of yanks on you as well. But yeah, it was a shock, but it was good learning too. There were a couple people I think who lost their goggles, and that was the start of the day. So
that's a rough one.
Luckily, we were swimming back towards our cars, so I think at least one person picked up a spare pair of goggles. And so that first swim, we were kind of going into the wind at that point, and technically it is a river. It's the Colorado River, but it's not a high flow river. So there isn't a strong current. It's really, you got to worry more about the wind direction of the day. And in that case, on Saturday, it was we were swimming kind of into the wind at that point. So that was what corresponds to swim 5, only we got out early because we got out there was a boat ramp at that tournament point that the kayaker kind of directed me to swim that way. So I went in and swam that way. And then we kind of all regrouped right there. And then some of us kind of took off running a little faster than the rest. But back to the cliffs, you can see Ödyssey did release a short, less than a minute video today on Facebook because Lars was there and he was doing some filming. And there's the very first shot is a guy jumping off the cliff, and I'm standing on the cliff in the middle of the picture. And then you can see people standing behind me, and they were kind of above. It doesn't look like it from the perspective, but they were kind of above my head. So
wow.
You have, 5, 10, 15, 20-foot jumps to make if you want.
I love it.
Okay. So that was swim 5 pretty much. And then I think you probably went and you started on the run 3, it seems like.
That's right.
Okay.
Yeah. Run 3, you kind of run back. So coming up from the water there, you are going to be on what is probably the sandiest portion of the course. It's really grassy and sandy in that area. And then once you hit the tree line, it turns into a typical Texas trail. So that is really hard packed, single track, lots of rocks, lots of roots. It isn't a real steep elevation gain, but you are kind of going over a mound. So the whole park is kind of a mound. But it's not super fast, and I wouldn't call it super technical, but it kind of is. I mean, there's a lot of places where you need to be looking at your feet, where you're putting your feet. So, yeah.
Yeah, I think, speaking for Chris and I, you got to be paying attention, and you can't have lazy feet because you'll be kicking rocks all day, and there's little cactuses and all sorts of stuff around that you just kind of got to be present and be aware where your feet are going.
Totally. I would say definitely a pro tip, and Adrian, I'm sure you can co-sign on this, is stay on the trails because you could step on one of these little cacti that's on the side and get a whole,
it's a bad day.
Get a flat tire.
There's a lot of prickly things just off the trail, yes.
Okay, so run 3, so you essentially cross the island heading towards the west side, and then going into swim 3, it's a super steep boat ramp going down to the swim. That's right? Yeah, so right before you get there, the trail, at least the course as it was marked on Saturday, you actually leave the trail and you kind of break through a little break in the trees and go across the short field to hit the road. And then what you're going to do is run through a parking lot at a boat ramp. And the boat ramp is very steep. I don't know if my GPS really got it accurately. It said it was like a 17% grade. If it's being used a lot and that boat ramp is open now, it's going to be really slick. Like you're not going to want to run down it. You're going to want to, go pretty slow going down. Mm-hmm. So at that point, you get back in the water and you're going past one cove and then into the next and into the second cove. And you're swimming you're still swimming against the quote current. But I didn't really feel like I was struggling against the current or anything.
it is kind of sheer rock cliffs on your left as you swim.
Mm-hmm.
And then when you turn into that cove, there was a white no wake buoy as you come in, and you're going to kind of go really close to that and then angle for the far side of the cove. And exiting that swim is also very steep. So you're scrambling up rocks. And the Ödyssey video had a short clip of that as well. The people scrambling up the rocks. So it's like, you're going to want your hands to be able to get out of the water there, because it's like 2 to 3 foot shelves that you're kind of hopping up.
Okay. A good place for some teamwork.
Yep.
And then of course helping out folks who, even if they're not even on your team, or they're solo swim runners, stick around to see if they need a hand.
Yeah, after the first couple of teams go through, it's probably going to start to get slick as the rocks get wet.
Noted.
Okay.
And then I guess it goes right into the biggest run of the day.
Almost 3.5 miles.
Yeah. So you're right there. It's still, you're kind of cutting. It was a little awkward. I was running with, there was 2 of the guys who I know who were there that day, and we all kind of ran as a group. And once you get up out of the water there, you're kind of sitting right at like a picnic table, but you feel like you want to run into the parking lot that's right there. But you really need to take a sharp left, and you head straight towards the tree line, and you go up a really kind of a short, steep and narrow part to get over to the road as fast as possible, and then across to actually meet up the real trail. So that was a little bit weird. That was one of the points where we had to, kind of get our bearings. And I'm sure on race day, there'll be people there kind of directing you. But
and it'll be marked and all that stuff.
No direction.
And that's when you're going back across Pace Bin Road?
Yes.
Okay.
Yeah. So then the trail that is Run 4 is that you do cross a little bit of, I would say, like an ATV access road. And that's where you're starting to get a little more of just like the dusty, more open part of the trail, and a little bit less of the rooty, hard rock stuff. And as you hit the point where there's going to be two-way traffic, the little out and back, when you get really close to the turnaround, there is a bit of a little downhill as you approach the turnaround. So that's going to be, as you make your way back up, you're really going to want to have your eyes up and make sure that there isn't somebody flying down the hill out of control. And that was probably about the steepest hill I think we run on for the trails. There was nothing on the trails that had me thinking, oh, wow, that was a big hill or anything like that. But that was probably the point where people could start flying down the hill, and there's going to be people going the other direction. So that's a point to be careful.
Yeah, I think people always get excited when there's the out and back of like, oh, I can try to put some time or appear I'm doing better than other people or whatever. So it's a sporty area. So just heads up.
Yeah, and then coming back, it was easy for us to see coming back that he had changed the colors of the flags when we had to make that right turn to exit the out and back area.
Oh, great.
And then there'll be more markings on race day, but it's what Lars was able to put up, the day before.
Cool.
So that's that last like third section of Run 4. I think that you also you go over a little bit. It's a mix of the single track trails, a little bit of the like ATV, kind of gravel trail. And then you'll cross the road and you're going to another boat ramp. And that boat ramp was just as steep, if not steeper. And the thing to note there is with the water so low, as soon as you hit the water line, it's just like it's muck under the water. So I took the first step in and sank like above my ankle and had to kind of plow through that for 15, 20 feet. And that wasn't fun. I had dirt in my shoes the rest of the day. So
probably when you got home too.
Yeah. So that's a point where if you can, you may want to scramble out along the rocks and take a jump into some deeper water, or just give it a dive and try to get out past that and just start swimming.
Okay,
noted.
Because the tide was pretty low, or the water level, tide, I guess, in the river.
Yeah, so this part of the river is kind of at the mercy of some upstream lakes that they maintain a constant water depth. So unless we get a whole bunch of rain between now and November 8th, then it's going to be the same way. So right now there doesn't look like there's a whole lot of rain in the forecast, but we can't see all the way to race day. So things could change, but it's likely to not change the water level too much between now and then.
Okay, and then so you get in the water, and it's a pretty
500 something,
pretty short swim. Technically against the current, but same thing.
What current?
You didn't really feel the current. It was okay.
Yeah, I didn't really notice the current too much. Again, it was like kind of gusts of wind, because the wind on that day was coming out of the northeast. So when you're on the east side of the park, you're exposed to the wind, as opposed to the west side of the park. You're swimming right next to a 20-foot cliff, so that you're not really feeling the wind at all.
Gotcha. And how is the swim exit for that one? Since that one leads into Run 5, which is the teamwork heavy kind of section. Yeah.
So swim 4, the exit, you really just it is short, and you're going just kind of right to the next cove. That's when I had to sit there and float for a second and try to find the flag on where we were supposed to get out.
Okay.
Because if you swim all the way to the corner of the cove, you're just going to be swimming into more muck. So you want to find a rock to be able to get out on, and then it is a climb again. So you're kind of climbing up a 15-foot cliff, and it's.
I love it.
And you want your hands free to be able to balance yourself and all that, and hopefully they will have some people there with some helping hands, because I can see if people are tired at that point, they're really going to need some help getting up the cliff.
Noted. And then I guess then the training session ended with one more swim.
So we did what is Run 5, and that kind of runs parallel to a road. It's really actually pretty twisty trail. It doesn't look like it on the map, but it's actually pretty twisty. And also one thing to note is there are restrooms there on that section. So if you need to use the restroom, there is a little outhouse there before you go to the cliff jump.
We have a team just in mind for a stop there.
Yeah. And then we did the cliff jump again, and I decided to do the full swim 5 to finish all the way across to that other point. Most people at that point just came out at the tournament point again. So that really it doesn't look like it on the map, but that almost cuts the swim in half, getting out at tournament point.
Oh, wow.
Wow. Interesting.
Nice. So that's really helpful. So basically you kind of described if you're looking at the long course map, basically the lower half.
Yeah, where the short course and long course splits, that section.
So you commented a little bit about the trail conditions in Pace Bend Park, and could you talk a little bit about the water, the temperature? You mentioned there's not much current either way. I'd love to hear your thoughts on that.
The water is warm right now, and I can share. There's a website that anyone can go to, and I can put it in the chat for you guys to share.
Oh yeah, we'll put it in the show notes. Thank you.
Put it in the show notes.
It's hydromet.lcra.org, and they keep track of a whole bunch of data with regards to the river. And if you were to go to the second drop down on the left, if you scroll all the way to the bottom, you can see the surface water temperature. And then they only take the readings at the dams. So you kind of have to zoom in, and you can get the dam at Lake LBJ and the dam at the end of Lake Travis. And Pace Bend Park is kind of in the middle. But when those two numbers are pretty much the same, the water temperature is going to be pretty much that temperature. It would be rare for it to be drastically different unless you got maybe some localized rain that dropped it a little bit, but it wouldn't be too much different. So right now that it's reading 79 and 78 degrees, that's what it said before I left Saturday morning for the training session. So it was very warm.
That's warm.
Yeah. That's interesting. That's very interesting. So any final thoughts? Did the training session help you? I mean, it has to help, right? Because you've never done a race before, right? But did it help you kind of in your visualizing what your game plan is going to be for the race?
Yeah. I mean, I think, to help my strengths, I'm going to be swimming hard. I was actually surprised at the end of the day how tired my shoulders were. And I have been doing regular training with like paddles, buoys, and shoes on in the pool. So, that was kind of surprising. But I was encouraged by how fast I was swimming compared to some of the other people there. So that's a good thing for me. There was no huge like hills that I would like save energy for or anything. But I also got to figure out a way to keep my paddle straps from hitting my watch lap button. That
happened a couple times. Yeah.
And then what are you thinking around nutrition? I know on the one kind of where you do the out and back, when around the turnaround, there's an aid station or there's energy there.
Yes. Run 4.
Now with 70-degree weather, you're not cooling the body off as quickly. And what was the air temp? I think it was in the 70s, right?
The air temp was actually in the low 60s. So the air was cooler than the water. And it was overcast and it was breezy. So I was standing around before we started. I had on an Arc Vig suit, which is basically not a wetsuit, right? It's like a swim skin, and I could feel the breeze through it. And I was getting a little chilly just standing there. But once I was moving, I was very glad I had that on and not a regular wetsuit.
Folks at home can't see this, but I have a grin from ear to ear because I love my Vig, and I was pretty much deciding I was going to wear it regardless of water temp, but I'm pretty stoked right now.
And then I'm also sitting here with regret for not having it.
Well, awesome. Well, Adrian, we really appreciate you taking the time to jump on a call with us so we can put this out. We're going to try to have this out in the next couple of days. And yeah, man, looking forward to meeting you in person. We'll do like a socially distanced, bro hug or something.
One other thing I want to share that hopefully helps anybody out. So it does cost money to get into the park. So for folks who are showing up early and want to get some trail running in on, trails that look exactly like that. There's a park. It's on the way out towards the Pace Bend Park. It's called Falcon Head West Primitive Park. It's free. It has a small parking lot. It's a little bit more vertical than the trails around Pace Bend, but it's the exact same type of terrain that you're going to see. It's rocky, rooty, short, soft sections, that kind of thing. So it's got like a 6.5 mile loop or something like that. If you want to get there and you want to run on some trails but don't want to pay to go into the park every day, or you're not camping at the park or what have you, I think that's a great place to run. I run there all the time, so
nice.
I feel very prepared for the trails at the race.
It's awesome. I'm sure you're gonna have an awesome race.
Yeah, man,
it's gonna be a lot of fun.
It's gonna be a blast. Well, again, we really appreciate it. Thanks for taking the time, and we'll see you there. And now it's only a matter of weeks.
Yeah, I'm excited. I'm super excited.
For sure. All right, Adrian, thanks a bunch, man.
All right.
Thank you for listening to the Low Tide Boys, a swim run podcast. Make sure to subscribe wherever you listen to your podcast and leave a review on iTunes if you're so inclined.
You can also sign up for a newsletter at lowtideboys.com. That's boys with a Z. And check out our meme page at The Low Tide Boys on Instagram. If you have any questions or suggestions for the show, drop us an email at lowtideboys@gmail.com.
We'd like to thank Writing Easy Records for our show music, and of course our wives for their support and tolerance of our swimrun activities, hobbies, and other bullshit we do.
Finally, you can support our efforts on Patreon. Until next time, get out there and go for a swim.
And then a run.
And then another swim.
Then another run.
And then another swim.
And then run to the finish line. And just keep going until you're done.
Yes.
Or run to the finish line.
Or run to the car.